So, I'm going to try my hand at a vlog, probably my one and only, and simply to explain my daughter's story, Kailey. I have 4 children. I reference them all the time, but Kailey has a story and she's unique, and I reference her a lot. Her story has a lot to do with how I let my life kind of spiral, and the reason why I really needed to pursue surgery to get a handle on my behavior and my life and to live my life, because she needs me. All of my kids need me, but Kailey's going to need me in the long run. So, in 2002, February of 2002, I had my beautiful little boy, Kevin. He was our first child. Everything was great, perfectly beautiful, healthy. When he was about 3 months old, I found out that I was expecting, and I was shocked. So, first let me tell you that if you're nursing, and even if you haven't had a cycle, you can get pregnant, because I had no cycle. I got pregnant. Anyway, November 2002, I went in for my sonogram, my 20-week, and it was a little late. It was more around 24, 25 weeks, because they had problems with, scheduling, and I was young and had just had a healthy baby, so it was really just for the fun of seeing the baby and all that fun stuff. I went in and I had my sonogram, and the sonogram tech was quiet. At one point she asked my husband and my son to leave, and I knew that things were not okay. I kept asking for pictures of the baby, and she kept telling me that they didn't have film or whatever story she gave me. Long story short was, that night I went home and I called my OBGYN and I said that I know something's wrong. Please find out what's going on. And she called me back, and she said it seemed that the baby had a cleft lip and spina bifida. So my world was rocked that night. She got me in to see a perinatalogist, I think the next day. And when we went to see them, the perinatalogist team, we were told that she did have a cleft lip and it was severe. She had spina bifida, and they suspected that she had a hypoplastic left heart. On top of all of that, she had what they called rocker bottom feet and lemon brain, and I don't know, she had hip issues, and she was very, very tiny. So, we were given the advice to terminate, and, we went ahead and did an amnio. They thought that she had trisomy 13 or 18, or DiGeorge syndrome, and the amnio came back and everything was fine, and we decided that they were telling us she was incompatible with life. They were telling us that there was no way that this baby would live. So we decided to carry to term and hold our baby as long as she would stay with us. And that's really all we hoped for, was to be able to hold her and let her feel how loved she was. My doctors dropped me as a patient because I didn't terminate. There was a team of doctors over at Long Island Jewish that were gracious enough to take on my case and deliver her, even though I had not been a previous patient and I was pretty far into my pregnancy at that point. So, lo and behold, February 13th comes along and I have my C-section. And they're telling me before I go in to be prepared, she's going to be very tiny, she's probably not going to breathe well, she's probably going to be discolored, and, she's got this cleft. So my C-section comes, and out comes Kailey, and she is not really tiny. I mean, she was short, 17 inches, but she was 6 pounds, 10 ounces. She was the fattest little thing I've ever seen. And she came out screaming, which shocked all 250 people that were in the operating room with me because, they needed every specialist on every team in. It was ridiculous. But anyway, she came out screaming, and she was red as can be. And I had hope. For the first time, I had hope because I expected a 3-pound baby that would be gray or blue, and I expected her to not look like she could thrive at all, and she did. The night that she was born, they took her right away to the NICU, of course, and I was kept in recovery for about 6 hours, and then they put me in my room and had me in the pressure cuffs on my legs, and they were telling me that I really couldn't go down and see her, and that pissed me off. My husband, my parents had all gone home. My sister Suzanne stayed with me, and as soon as the nurses left my room, they had me in a separate part of the hospital. Of course, they didn't want to leave me with the other postpartum moms who had their healthy, happy babies, so I was in a different part of the hospital. The nurses went off to do their thing, and Suzanne ran out and grabbed a wheelchair, and I hopped my post-surgical ass into the wheelchair, and Suzanne ran me from the floor I was on over to the children's hospital, into the NICU, and we were greeted there by a nurse who didn't want to let us into the NICU. Told us that we couldn't see the baby until the doctor spoke to me, and that they would need my husband there too. At this point, I was kind of like, what gives? We know that she's going to die. Let us in. Let us hold our baby. I can go into all the details of that night, but what it comes down to is that they told us she wasn't going to make it through the night. We got my dad and my husband back up there. We called in a priest to have her baptized. Her neurosurgeon yelled at the nurses and said, "How dare you try to keep a mother from her child?" And, of course, let her hold that baby. They didn't want me to hold her because her spine was open. And basically what was going to happen was that because her heart wasn't stable, her spine couldn't be closed. So if her heart didn't take her, she would get meningitis. And it was pretty much a certain thing. So we had her baptized, and this is going entirely too long.